Prost. Nastovia, Solange, L'chaim. In any language you drink, we all drink the same, right? Skol. My name is Joshua Baumgarten. I'm originally from America, from New York. I live in Harlem. I organize and have a shop called the Irrational Library. Out of that shop, we have a small press. We like to put together books of poetry, spoken word, storytelling. And our first edition that came out was something called I Spoke to You. And it is a beautiful accordion sort of bookie. And on one side is one poet, and the other side is a second poet. And each poet addresses the topic, I spoke to you, in whatever fashion they feel like it. So I'm going to start off this evening with the first poem on my side, and it is sort of a prayer. It is called Before We Walk or Swim or Contemplate. Before we walk through plate glass windows, or choose to swim in barbed wire seas full of message in a bottle Molotov cocktails served shaken like epileptic sailors upon catatonic cruise ships, let us all take a moment to contemplate the fragility of the landscape, ego eggshells, and the growing crevice between corrupt consciousness and the evolution of the caterpillar from larva to corporate whore. Amen. Bit warm up here. I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm a spoken word fool. And I'm not a hipster, I'm Jewish. The social contract. We have sold our souls for our own petty needs. Don't let the poet tell you that you haven't. Don't let the poet distract you with dark yarns of fractured families, neglect of rocking chairs, or the fraying of old photos, or new Photoshop portraits of poets just pointing with no destination beyond the end of the fingertip. Don't let the poet push you to accept art. Don't accept the pull of what the poet claims to be art. Don't just accept art or the poet or the fact that both are too often created to be too complicated to even bother trying to understand. Art is an eyesore. The poet is a headache. Together they wear the soul down to a burnt-out cylinder. The want and need of the poet/artist are just whores fighting over the amda of the last John in town with an intention span to blow, looking to stick his imagination into any random poetry hole. Ooh. While I sit contemplating, I wonder how Anne Frank would feel about the Israeli occupation, or if Hitler would have been different, a different kind of killer, if he had met Picasso and had actually learned how to use his paints. If Charles Manson would have been a little bit of a less high-strung killer had he scored a record deal and moved his band to Laurel Canyon and nestled in with Joni Mitchell. If Hemingway's father had not committed suicide, would he have been so trigger-happy for all that bullfighting and bloodletting bullshit? Or if George W. Bush had been born in New Hampshire and only vacationed in Texas, would he have still been such a corporate cock-sucking cowboy? I wonder if Pussy Riot had been an all-male band called the Cock and Balls Riot Brigade, would Putin have felt so threatened or actually aroused? And I wonder, too, if Columbus had actually been a decent explorer, would America have ended up in India? And would Disney World have not been created at all? If Martin Luther King had started his famous speech with, I am living a nightmare instead of I have a dream. Would racism in the world be looked at not only as something to overcome, but something that undermines us all? I wonder if Bill Clinton if he had only admitted to inhaling and infidelity, maybe, just maybe, he would have brought a bit of honesty and dignity into American politics. And I wonder lastly, why is it so difficult for someone to replace the toilet paper roll when the last piece of tissue is torn from the cardboard roll? Flush it all. More of the obvious less. Most of us never spend a day of our lives searching for anything besides our car keys and telephones. Like a television series stretched out from 1 season to 7, the plot is sometimes lost amongst us all. It takes a pretty face to shake the collection box and have the public smile while giving. Tradition bears the weight of all the wagon wheels that ran over those who may have ever gotten in their way. So taught with ideas that are bred to misrepresent, is it any wonder that the kid standing before the class is just a target for the rest? Sickness, this city, this suburb, this small town sliding into the mud as the rivers roll and the sewers collect insurance checks that will never be cashed. It's more of the obvious less, and it is the lesson that is most left off the agenda last. Thank you. Just a few more. A few weeks ago, I visited Israel for the second time with my family via a synagogue out of New York State and a Presbyterian church. Presbyterians are a sort of sect of Catholicism, but a lot more relaxed. And it was an interfaith tour, which was kind of interesting. So we did a lot of Jesus things, some Jewish things, and Jesus things and Jewish things. You got to see the muddy waters where Jesus was baptized. Quite interesting. And while I was traveling, I did a lot of writing. So I want to read just a few of those. The difference between Arab and Israeli men. The Arab men still have their hair, while the Israelis have their land. 1 out of 10. I know that the first commandment of the infamous 10 is thou shalt not kill. But I really wonder, now that I'm moving across the desert of Israel in a tour bus with my family, how Moses didn't strangle one of his sons who couldn't sit still and just be quiet while wandering the desert for 40 years, let alone 40 minutes with Wi-Fi, an iPod, and air conditioning. Thank you. Asian tourists in arm-in-arm embrace, making photos outside the Jerusalem Holocaust Museum, make for odd Instagrams. Yeah. That was Israel. And just 2 more. What all things are come to be. Bear false witness and be none the more wise. Choke on the choices, so many, so much ado about nothing. So out of reach, so cold to the touch, realize there fades another smile. Look beyond, I ask you to look beyond. Reality's trigger a swollen finger upon a gun pointed without aim. And hallowed be thy name, hollowed out a hollowed hole. Revered and then reviled. Energy spurting out of eye sockets, oozing from out underneath fingernails. Frantic pacing, putting pressure upon cobblestone communities are crumbling. The force of the weight bears down upon the back of the neck. Just wait a minute. Just wait 1 more minute before going crazy, it's gone. I can't sit still before the windowsill. Let yourself wonder and wander without getting out of your seat. No hurry, no rush, there's no time left. Gotta get going to whereabouts, unknown soldier. Know your enemy. Who's to say who's who, and are we really free to choose between the choice of what will and should never be? As we learn to breathe with less and less sea. But then again, and then again, and then again, maybe we won't. The choice is to get free, and not just to be. And I'd like to add end on this one, Ken, Evelina, thank you for organizing this again after so much time.
Jeroen as well.
And Jeroen, thank you very much. And thank you guys all for coming out. You've been, you guys are a lovely bunch of people. Poetry. Poetry as the push and the pull. Poetry as the pit as well as the pendulum. Poetry as a crystal clear plate glass window and the rock you save, especially for those who live in houses made of glass. Poetry in the power of making your point and in the weakness of that want. Poetry as persuasion. Poetry as a diversion. Poetry as the last prop to lean upon in a world built upon cardboard fortifications. Poetry as the reason to continue writing poetry. More poetry, and less worry over the words, the words, the words. Thank you. If anybody's interested, I have a few copies of these little nice bookies for just €2. So catch me after the show, please.
Yay!